On their side. It's not Harper, but someone's on their side. The bad news is that the Harper government is once again poised to attack workers' rights, take away our bargaining rights, and take away the bargaining rights of our brothers and sisters in the Teamsters by legislating an end to a dispute. They've been on strike for 6 days. Nobody's life is in jeopardy. You know, there's no threat to life or limb here. There's no reason for the Harper government to once again attack workers' rights and side with the employer, because that's what this is, clearly siding with the employer against workers who are exercising their legitimate rights in a democratic society. So we have a lineup of speakers to talk to all of you, and thank you for coming out to support our brothers and sisters in the Teamsters. The first of them is a rep from the Teamsters, Jerry Ransom, from the Teamsters Canada Rail Conference.
Okay, thanks to the Sinclair for inviting us all down here and try to come to some kind of collusion against these companies that are using the government for our negotiating and determining our collective agreements. In our case, we've been on the picket lines now for almost 6 days. The government is at this moment discussing back to work legislation to force us back to work and into binding arbitration. Saying that, it's not something new to us in the railway. In fact, since 1950, it's happened to us 8 times. The last time being 1995, when Justice Adams basically tore our collective agreement apart in binding arbitration. Now, this is issues that are being discussed in Parliament right now. Since that time, we have managed through 4 different sets of bargaining with no interference from the government, because we always had that sitting at our back. Unfortunately, this time, this employer, CP Rail, entered the game right from the get-go to get into binding arbitration. Maybe because they've seen what happened with 2 other federal unions, Air Canada and Canada Post, that the government moved to legislate them back to work. As many of you know, CP Rail has gone through a big change here in the last month, with Americans coming in and taking somewhat control of the company. This outfit now wants better share value. So they're basically using our pension plan to give that share value. The sad thing about that issue is 2 of the biggest pension plans in this country, CPP and Ontario Teachers Pension Fund, are 2 of the biggest shareholders that got Pershing Group in there. And our pension now, they want cuts in our pension to help their pension fund. And the government, with their legislation, is going to help them. Now, I could sit here and talk about all the issues on the table, about how they want to take us to a 12-hour day, about fatigue management. The fact is, the company came in here into this set of negotiations 6 months ago with the goal to go to binding arbitration. And they're getting that deal. So we'll just have to wait and see what that entails for us. I think the goal here from this thing, we have to go forth as workers and try to stop this action from these governments. It's provincial-wise and federal-wise that we are all getting, they're taking our rights to bargain away. So as members, as the public, we should start writing our MLAs, our MPs about this. It's just wrong. It's a basic right that we have in Canada and many democratic countries that we should be able to bargain faithfully with our employer.
General strike!
Anyways, I'll leave it up to the other ones to give a little speech, but that's our position. We have done a lot of letter writing to the ministers over this issue throughout this process. I guess it hasn't kept the back to work legislation out. What we see is that she did not put the final offer selection process in that legislation. I wouldn't say we're happy with that, but it's better than, I guess, what Air Canada and Canada Post got, because that's a scary process, and the employer isn't too pleased with it. but we'll see what we have tomorrow when the legislation is passed through the Senate. But let's go forth and try to stop this action by getting out and voting, writing our MPs, writing our MLAs. So thanks a lot for coming out.
Thanks, Jerry. The union's affiliates of the BC Fed stand in solidarity with you, and many of us, including me, have been there and been legislated back to work. 1, 2, 3, at least 3 times for me, maybe 4. Our next speaker, of course, needs no introduction. Please welcome my friend and brother, Jim Sinclair.
First of all, let me thank all of you for coming out today to show our solidarity with Teamsters and send a message to Stephen Harper that legislating workers back to work is wrong. You know, I could see if we got a big safety issue here. If somehow somebody's life is in danger, we as working people respect that. We know that police don't go on strike and firefighters don't go on strike. But the only safety issue in this dispute is the company wants them to work 12 hours instead of 10 hours. That's what this is about. They want to bring in unsafe conditions, not protect the public. And that's what this is about. This is about destroying unions. This is about attacking unions and attacking what we do, which is collective bargaining. Almost everything we got as working people in Canada came because we fought for it on picket lines, fought for it by going on strike, and exercised our right to collective bargaining. That's a fundamental right. The Supreme Court said it was a fundamental right, but we're going to have to keep fighting for that because they're taking it away. And that's wrong again. You know, the other thing, they're attacking all across the country. In the private sector, in the public sector, it's suddenly become a crime, a real crime, to have a pension plan that pays good money. Suddenly this is all wrong. Suddenly the people who work all their lives moving freight all across this country so our economy can work are somehow wrong because they have a decent pension plan and it has to be rolled back. I say no rollbacks to pension, improve pensions and make them better for every worker in Canada. Absolutely. Oh, and by the way, I did a little research today because I'm thinking to myself, well, those people in that House that are going to vote to send in an arbitrator with the orders to roll back the pension plan, what are their pension plan? Well, you know what? When Mr. Harper retires, thanks to all of us, when he retires in 2015, his pension plan is $223,000 a year. $223,000 a year. Well, I'll tell you, when every worker has that, we'll roll it back a little bit, okay? The people we have to roll back are Stephen Harper. And I want to say thank you to the opposition in this country today, because they are standing up to this government today in that House and giving voice to what we all believe. That being in a trade union is a right, that collective bargaining is a right, and everybody has that right inherently because we are working people and we'll have to keep fighting for that. You know, it's not just attacking trade unions. This is the 3rd time we've had teachers ordered back to work by this government. But you know, the last thing they did was they want to bring in more temporary foreign workers. Why do they want to do that? Because it undercuts wages. And they're not pretending this anymore, that they're going to check and make sure everybody has a job first or that there's a fair wage. They've said publicly, we're going to bring them in and you can pay them 15% less than Canadians. This is outrageous. This is a part of a national campaign to lower the wages of working people across the whole country. And we say to that every worker should have the same rights and the same pay for what they do. And that's our commitment as a labour movement in Canada. They changed the EI rules to kick you off EI faster because they want you to take lower paying jobs in other places in the country. 20,000 public sector workers, public service workers who take care of our water and our air and our food and all those things. What's their answer? Lay them off, 20,000 of them, including 1,000 in British Columbia. Shame on them. Shame on them. So the bottom line is, yes, who benefits? They want to bring Hunter Harrison back to run CP Rail. Well, I say to Mr. Harrison, you can stay in Tennessee, buddy, because we don't want you. We have no time for you, buddy. You stay in Tennessee. And maybe someday we'll take back that railway company so we own it in Canada again. And the people of Canada own it. That would be a good start. So again, this was short notice. But we felt, talking with the Teamsters today and seeing them, that there had to be some public expression of opposition to this government. This is not a Teamster problem. This is a problem for working people in the labour movement. And we're going to have to build a response. Yes, we'll send our letters and build a response across this country so that we push Harper back and back and back until finally we push him out of office and put a government there that respects working people. I wanted to end with a quote, because I thought to myself, maybe other people feel the same way we do. So I was very surprised to think that this guy named Michael Warren, who I remember, used to run the post office. He was the CEO of the post office and who negotiated collective agreements with his workers. And he said this about the dispute now. He said, the ability of unions to negotiate is being weakened. Employees know now that they won't be shut down for long, so they can more easily press for major concessions. And they have a reasonable chance of ultimately getting much of what they want from arbitrators appointed by the minister. He's the CEO of the post office, and he says that this is about Harper attacking unions. So we get it. Canadians get it. Let's keep standing up. Let's keep fighting back. That's our job. Thanks very much. Keep up this fight, okay? And thank you to the Teamsters.
Thanks, Jim. As I said before, many unions in this province and across this country have faced similar situations with legislation and their bargaining rights being taken away by right-wing governments. Our next speaker is a representative from a union that has faced just that. We were here at this very place in a rally to support that union. Please welcome John Bale from the Canadian Union of Postal Workers.
Good afternoon and welcome, and in solidarity, Canadian Union of Postal Workers with the Teamsters. I'm proud to be here and proud to support you. Where was Lisa Raitt when Rio Tinto's out? Why didn't she do anything for them? Why didn't she do anything for Electromotive? But when it comes to postal workers, we're legislated back before we even have a chance to negotiate. When it comes to you're legislated back before you negotiate. The Public Service Alliance of Canada facing real cuts, huge cuts, and have no say whatsoever. I stand in solidarity with the Quebec students who are standing up to their government, and we're going to have to look at that too. I'm standing in solidarity with the teachers who stood up to their government here, and we're going to have to look up to them too. We're going to have to talk to our members and say, we're not going to elect people that have no respect for working people anymore. We're going to ask these people questions before they run for office. What are you going to do? Are you going to allow collective bargaining to occur? Or are you just going to legislate people back without a chance, knowing the companies know that? They just don't negotiate anything. Like CP, Canada Post had put on the website when they did a strategic review that they wanted to tear up the collective agreement. That was their wish list, and they got it. Unfortunately, they can't find an arbitrator. We're still sitting here. We were legislated back. The legislation went through on June 26th. It was supposed to be 90 days final offer selection. And we caught the last arbitrator on Facebook. He was friends with Lisa Raitt. So we got to stay on him. That's to Fort. And we're having a hearing on July 25th. So that'll be a year and a month since the legislation. We're still standing. Yeah. It's what it is. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. They go out there and they just take away your rights. They want the pensions. They gave all the money in the treasury to the banks, and now they want your pensions. That's what they're doing. And what about EI? Jim talked about the migrant foreign workers. Well, now we have to compete with them, apparently, to get EI. That's the new one. There is no respect for working people here. There is none whatsoever. And so we have to stand together, and we have to fight together, and we have to take the common ground that there are working people here, that we deserve something, and we're getting nothing from the government of the 1%. And it's time for a change, and it's time to stand up. And I'm so proud of what's going on in Quebec, and maybe it'll happen here. That's what we need to see. Thanks, everyone, and good luck.
Thanks very much, John. Harper's attack on unions has many faces. One is the legislation we're seeing to order the Teamsters back to work, the legislation to order CUPW back to work at the airports, CUPW back to work. But another face of that attack on union is the budget and the massive cuts to the public service in that budget. And that will hurt their union too, the Public Service Alliance of Canada. And not only that, but it will diminish services that will make things worse for the people of British Columbia and indeed may put our health and safety and security at risk. So we have today a representative from the PSAC to speak to us. His name is Bob Jackson from the Public Service Alliance of Canada.
Well, thanks, Irene, and thanks, Jim, and everybody who spoke. I'm very pleased to be here, to be standing with the Teamsters in their fight. And I bring the wishes of over 18,000 members. We had 18,900 members in this province. 900 of those have lost their jobs as a result of this government. But we stand here with our sisters and brothers with CP Rail, and we condemn the actions of the Harper government. All of whom say to Lisa Raitt, negotiate, don't legislate. By taking away the Teamsters' rights to collective bargaining, the government is badly mismanaging this situation. And more so, the government is mismanaging this country. This is our country. It's our children's country. And we can't afford to stand by and watch this government destroy what we've fought to achieve and to preserve. Just weeks after the last federal government was tabled at the end of March, before it even passed in Parliament, the Harper government started cutting $5 billion. They started reducing the federal government workforce by up to 10% in some departments. And we've seen the impact of these cuts across all lines. Here in BC, over 900 positions, like I say, have already been lost, and we're expecting many, many more. Cuts at citizenship and immigration make it harder for new Canadians to access the services that they deserve and we all deserve. Cuts at the Parole Board and the Canadian Border Service Agency are making this country less safe than it has ever been. Cuts at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans and Environment weaken our ability to monitor and protect our environment, both today and in the future. Cuts to the frontline staff at Veterans Affairs. Veterans who have served our country overseas and are now coming back and need services, they have the audacity to go to those veterans and say, well, you know, you're not important enough anymore, and we're going to take away the frontline service workers, where you have to go into an office and try and get service when you come back from services overseas. That's a shame, folks. Cuts at Transport Canada and the Coast Guard. Just down the street here, they're going to close the Coast Guard base and take away the safety of everybody who uses these waters out in English Bay and in the First Narrows, and they're going to rely on a base that's more than half an hour away on the other side of YVR. It's ridiculous. These cuts are happening without any kind of consultation, and they continue to happen even though they stay there and say, oh yeah, there was very wide consultation. We consulted with everybody. They didn't even consult with the City of Vancouver. Not with the Mayor, not with the City Council, not with the Auxiliary Coast Guard. No one. Liars! They are liars. And they need to be told so. This government doesn't have a mandate to legislate away the rights to strike in this country. Those rights have been fought for. Those are our rights, and they don't have the mandate. They were not given a mandate to do that. And we need to make sure that all of us standing here today, that they hear that message. We demand that the government that respects workers' rights, not destroys them. We demand a government that doesn't take orders from corporations and listens to the rights of the people that set them there to govern. And we demand a government that invests in strong public services, and we're going to need to demand that, and we're all going to have to work together to get that done. So thank you very much. Good luck to the Teamsters.
Thank you very much, Bob. And everybody here and all of the unions in British Columbia stand in solidarity with you in your fight for your members and for good public services in Canada that we all rely on. Our next speaker is from the Vancouver and District Labour Council. Every picket line in this lower mainland, the VDLC shows up to support workers. And I want you to welcome the first woman president in 122 years of the VDLC, Sister Joey Hartman.
Thank you, Irene, and thank you, every one of you, for being here today. As Irene says, the Vancouver District Labour Council makes a point that whatever labour disputes are happening in our jurisdiction, that we are on the line with those workers, that we write a letter to the employers and tell them to get back to the table and get real, and a letter to the union and tell them that we're in solidarity with them, and if necessary, a letter to the government and the people who are pulling the strings on these decisions, and we will be doing the same for the Teamsters on this issue. You know, about 70 years ago, the labor movement made what we called the historic compromise with a piece of legislation called PC 1003. And at that point, the unions gave up the right to down tools. We gave up the right to walk off the job and stop working and stop giving our labor to the bosses in order to get our grievances dealt with. And the compromise on the employer side was that they were supposed to now recognize unions, that they had to negotiate with us, because up until then, many and most strikes were about the right to get union recognition and to have the boss actually sit down with your bargaining committee and negotiate. That's the theory of the balance. We all know it's not balanced, but that's the theory of labor relations in this country. And we seem to have a Minister of Labor federally who does not get it. Minister Raitt has made it impossible for the unions to bargain because they've given the full deck of cards and all the aces to the bosses. And what would any boss do when they have that deck of cards given to them? They're not going to negotiate. They're going to just bide their time and wait until the legislation is done for them. And your union is left at the table where, what are they going to do? Negotiate with themselves? So you're forced out on strike, and then they just count the days until they send you back in. It's not labor relations. It's not justice. It's not negotiations. There is no free collective bargaining in this country right now, and we need to regain those rights. And we know it's not money. I asked one of the brothers today, how much was the profits of this company last year? And his recollection was $570 million. And what happened to the days when politicians used to brag about having good paying, family supporting jobs in their community and thinking that that's a good thing? It is a good thing. And we need to make sure that we make that message clear and that we don't give up on these issues. When we as laborists, trade unionists, have our rights taken away, it impacts every Canadian. We know that by having good supporting, good wages and conditions in our workplaces, that we're holding a bar up for all workers. And even though we only represent 30% of workers with wage jobs, we know that the other 70% are benefiting from that work as well. So it's our responsibility not just to take care of ourselves, but to take care of the interests of every Canadian. And I can see that the Teamsters are doing that, and all of the other unions who are here in solidarity with you today. Please keep up the struggle. This fight is not over. Solidarity, brothers and sisters.
Thank you so much, Joey, and thank you for your solidarity with many, many workers in the Lower Mainland and across the province when they're on strike. You know, there's lots of bad news out there. There's the attack on our rights, there's legislated agreements, there's CEO salaries, there's corporate power, there's the right-wing governments that support all of those bad things. But there's lots of good news, too. There's the Occupy movement, there's what's happening in Quebec with the students, there's what's happening in France and Greece with governments, there's the BC Liberals' number in the polls. The tide is turning, brothers and sisters, and I want to thank you all for coming out and showing your commitment to keeping up the fight, to taking that fight to the bargaining table, to taking that fight to the courts, to taking that fight to the streets, to taking that fight to the ballot box. So thank you all for that commitment. We're going to keep up the fight. We're going to jump on the board can you jump on the board of a turning tide? Maybe on a surfboard you can. So we're going to jump on board with those good things that are happening and keep fighting for the world we believe in. And I want to end by thanking our brothers and sisters here today from the Teamsters. Let's give them a huge cheer. Thank you so much. much, brothers and sisters in the Teamsters, for fighting for wages, benefits, pensions for your members, for decent working conditions. The fatigue issues that some of the Teamsters talked to us about this morning on the picket line are appalling. They should be lowering the work. They should be improving the working conditions, not proposing to make them worse. So keep up the fight, brothers and sisters. Whether you're in the Teamsters and all unions, we're going to turn the tide. We're going to win this fight. Thank you for coming today, and enjoy the little bit of sunshine we may have this week. Thank you.